Hi, everybody. I'm Larry Pignataro, Senior Energy Advisor at Competitive Energy Services. And today we are continuing our Stay at Home series with a weather outlook. But more importantly, we have a special guest with us today, and I'd like to welcome my friend and my college buddy, WGME News 13 meteorologist, Charlie Lopresti. Thanks for joining me today, Charlie. This will be fun.
This will be fun. Thanks for having me, Larry. This is pretty cool here. I've always been excited about forecasting seasons for commodities and that kind of thing. But as far as I know a lot of folks do this as a job. And for me, there's nothing in it. For folks that put money on things like this, I can see how it could be very stressful, but it's exciting to forecast a season and see what comes out of it.
Yeah, we are talking about weather with all of our clients all the time, and
Yep.
there's some pretty big impacts. So let's dive into it here. Let me share my screen, and we'll get after it. So thanks again for helping out here, Charlie. There's our beautiful picture, our presenters today. And so when we talk about how weather and energy intersect, we're very concerned about the commodity market, and more specifically natural gas. It could be impacted pretty drastically on those peak cold days because of regional pipeline capacity constraints, especially when we have those polar vortex type winters. Now, many of you have probably seen this slide from CES, and really this is just a graphic to show how the weather impacted natural gas spot pricing. And you can see back in 17, 18, where spot pricing went up to close to $80. And that was that really, really cold New Year's Eve 2017. But really, I wanted to take a look too at how this past winter shaped up and kind of what was impacted by weather. And really, we didn't have much weather at all. Heating degree days were down comparatively to last year and prior years. And as you can see on the right, the gas strips over the winter months, there really was no impact at all. It was actually declining as opposed to when we see it get cold, it go up. So, Charlie, what happened this winter? Where was winter? No cold in December, Jan, and Feb.
Yeah, no cold at all. It was kind of an interesting winter. In Portland, we ended up a little bit below normal in snowfall, but that's not a good representation of what we had for the winter. Usually when we have a normal snowfall or above normal snowfall, it's a pretty good pretty good chance you had a semi-permanent trough of low pressure over the eastern half of the United States, and that wasn't the case. So leading into the winter, one of the first things that I always look at, what's the state of ENSO, which is El Nino Southern Oscillation. And if it's positive, then you have an El Nino. If it's negative, you have a La Nina, meaning a cooling of the Eastern Pacific Ocean, and a warming is an El Nino. Now, we had a neutral season, or we're forecasting more of a neutral season, so we really had to look elsewhere for what to expect the upcoming winter. So one of the things that we did see, and a lot of forecasters jumped on this, including me, was the abnormally warm pool of water over the North Pacific and into the Gulf of Alaska. Now, typically, if you were to look at many years where that occurs, you get a big ridge of high pressure over the Pacific and over the western part of the United States, and you get a nice deep trough over the eastern half of the United States that supplies cold and an active storm track. And we felt pretty confident that was going to happen. And the flip would probably be in January or February, and it really never happened. So that really wasn't the case this winter around. This is my winter forecast, and it was heavily weighed on that flip in January and February. We felt very confident that the eastern half of the United States was going to be very warm in December. In fact, I was on record for saying there was going to be no snow on the ground Christmas morning, which is a big deal in Maine and New Hampshire. But
you said that.
December was very warm, Larry. Remember that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, you said that.
It was a very, typically when you have a cold November, it's a clear correlation a lot of times that, when it's cold in November, that can't sustain itself. It usually warms up in December, and then winter comes back at some point. So we were kind of banking on that. Now, this was kind of the winter forecast for temperature anomalies. And if you look at what happened in the month of April specifically, I don't know if you can toggle back and forth between these graphics. Winter actually showed up. That map showed up, but a month and a half later. So as far as commodity goes for natural gas and that kind of thing, it's endgame. It's in the springtime, and it's more of a nuisance for the rest of us. People are upset with their local meteorologists, and it's just snowing when it's not supposed to. And April just ended up colder than normal, but that was, in my eyes, supposed to happen in February, and instead it happened in March and April around here.
So you were right on, but 2 months late.
2 months late,
2
exactly.
months late.
It
That's
was
good.
interesting. There's plenty of cold air up in the poles, but it just never, sometimes you get that we call that polar vortex. You look for these big undulations in the polar jet stream, and it allows some of that to sometimes break off and move into Canada, into northern New England. And we thought that would happen. It just never did, at least during the winter months. And as we know, in March, April, and through the first half of May, it did. And, we've had some pretty good shots of modified Arctic air over the last 4 weeks around here. And finally, the pattern's starting to flip back to more of a spring pattern here eventually.
Yeah, it was cold in the early spring. So I guess now let's chat about the summer. Seems like it's coming quick, and look outside. It's pretty nice out. So what are we looking at for this summer?
That sounds like a good idea. You were breaking up a little bit right there, Larry. Can you repeat yourself one more time?
I was just saying, like, let's look at the summer forecast.
Oh, perfect. All right. So this next graphic right here, this is one that I put together. This isn't necessarily like a summer forecast that I would, draw contours on and things like that. But what I did do is, one of the things that is very important to me is I like to see what is happening or what has happened, line that up with other years where that has happened, and take those years and see what has happened in the following season for the summer, for instance, June, July, and August. So what I did here is I took the abnormally cool, let's see, it was April through May 15th. So all of April through May 15th. And I found the top 15 coldest, just like this year, over the last 40 years. And I plugged it into a database. That's what all those little dates are right there with the years. And there was a clear correlation between cold Aprils, the first half of May's, and warm summers here in the northeastern half of the United States, and also a little bit of a cool blob into like the Gulf states and into Texas and portions of Oklahoma. So I found that 82% of those summers were either normal or warmer than normal here in Maine, New Hampshire, and throughout the northeastern part of the United States, and drier than normal for the summer months. So we're talking specifically about June, July, and August. So basically you take a cold spring and you forecast out, and a lot of those cold springs had transitioned to a warm summer, and there is a clear correlation in that, and that's what we're seeing right here.
Yeah, so you're saying potential for a above average summer from a temperature standpoint.
I think so. It's hard to say. I know in your business, you're always looking for, okay, when's that hot day going to be? When's your hottest day is going to be? And it's almost guaranteed it's going to be in July and August. But I would say, above normal in temperatures, below normal in precipitation, and that's about as close as I can get at this point. And as you know, when you're above normal in temperatures, temperature anomalies at least, somewhere in there, you're going to get some days in the 90s. There's going to be high humidity. You probably get bad air quality. There's a lot going on in there, and there's going to be a big draw on the energy system.
Right. So that's a good lead in, Charlie, to my next kind of point here, is that another piece on the flip side is in the summer, CES helps our clients with demand response programs, and we provide self-help notifications. Now, this is important because a portion of your electricity bill as end users is based on your contribution to that peak hour of the year on the grid. And what this graph is showing here is temperature over the last 9 or 10 summers and the peak annual system, and kind of where that peak hour was. So you can see, as Charlie referenced, July, August, typically those hot, hazy, humid days is when we see that peak hour, when the entire region has their air conditioner on and is drawing significant amount of electricity load. So what we do is we provide notifications to our customers when we think that's going to happen. And we typically will provide that in an email. And just if you look back historically, last year, I think we sent out about 10 of those emails. The year before, about 15. And then in 17, we sent out about 5 of those. So based on Charlie's comments of a potential of above average temperatures, you could be seeing multiple calls from CES to curtail your operation and help you save on your capacity tag. So another thing that we wanted to talk about today was the potential of hurricanes and how that could impact energy. And what we've seen historically, Charlie, is that if there's a Gulf hurricane or any hurricane that interrupts the Gulf, that the energy industry can come to a halt with that area being highly dense for the energy industry in Houston area. So what are we thinking? What are we thinking for this year? Do you have any early predictions?
Yeah, I do. And this is, I'm not the only one that kind of has this thought on here. What you're looking at here, we talked about ENSO, El Nino, Southern Oscillation. When a lot of those lines go above that middle dark line right there, the 0 line, that's when we get El Nino years, and the forecast for the below that line is a La Nina, colder than normal. So one of the things I look for in the hurricane season is, first, is it going to be an El Nino summer? Typically, El Nino summers would produce a stronger than normal subtropical jet stream, and a lot of times hurricanes that form in those sort of situations, the hurricanes would just get blown apart. Hurricanes need almost calm conditions, and they feed off the warmer tropical Atlantic Ocean, and they have very few steering currents. If they get a jet stream that's just blowing them apart, it's just not going to work. So this is clear here. If you look through June, July, August, which is the JJA section right there, the forecast, I mean, there's a bit of a spread right there, but the mean is either around 0 or maybe close to negative 0.5, which would either be neutral or a slight La Nina summer, I mean. So to me, that says, okay, that the breeding ground for the hurricanes is going to be right, because there's, first of all, there's no strong subtropical jet stream that's going to blow them apart. And second, if you look at the sea surface temperature anomalies, on this map right here, this is one I sent Larry just the other day. And if you look between Africa and the Caribbean, the tropical Atlantic Ocean right now is primed for warmer than normal temperatures. And that goes all the way up into the Gulf of Mexico and right into about Florida right there. It's also worthy of note that you're seeing that little ribbon of blue that comes near the equatorial, right in there, exactly. That's we're watching for El Nino or La Nina. There's a slight cooling in some spots right there, which would indicate possible weak La Nina or a possible either a neutral season. So what I did here is I took a bunch of years going back to 2000 where it wasn't perfect, but I looked at all the sea surface temperature anomalies in May, like we have right now, and I took ones that were either neutral for ENSO, or weak La Ninas, and also showed a warmer than normal water temperature in the tropical Atlantic Ocean. And I took those years and just ran the numbers on them. So it was 2014, 2005, 2006, 2007, 11, 13, and 19. And you can see that many of those years, we had above normal named storms, hurricanes, and major hurricanes. And I hate to say it, but 2005, it didn't line up perfectly, but 2005 is the year. I mean, that's the Katrina year. That's the year we went to the Greek alphabet with 28 storms. And you can only hope that we don't see anything like that going forward. One of the other things that shoots out at me right here is 2011. That one shows up. 2011 was the last year that the temperature went over 100 degrees at my house. And it was the last year that we had a tropical storm in northern New England. That was when Irene came up. So
Right.
I don't know. It's just always fun. I think it's fun to look back and see, okay, what has happened? How does this line up with what has happened in the past? And a lot of times I urge folks at home to do that too. Take something that's happening now and see what has happened and how did those summers play out. And in many of those summers, you have above normal temperatures, above normal hurricane season, that kind of thing. And that's what we're forecasting here is above normal hurricane season and warmer than normal temperatures in basically the eastern half of the United States as well.
Right. And if we look back to the impact of the Gulf Coast in 2017, there was Harvey and Irma. And, that's not on this list, but that wasn't even really a bad storm. That was more of massive flooding. I mean, from a wind perspective and everything else, it didn't really impact it that way. It was just massive floodings. And from an energy standpoint, oil refining was down 25%. Prompt month oil pricing went through the roof. Gulf Coast shipments of oil and gas were halted. Exports were down. Everything was impacted for a couple of weeks. So there could be significant impacts when to the energy industry if we see those in that particular area. So
the next step you could take is you could look at those years that were highlighted and you could say, okay, where were all those impacts of those storms? Was it heavily weighed on the Gulf of Mexico, or is it more towards the the Caribbean. Sometimes these storms are named out in the middle of the Atlantic and nobody sees them at all. But yeah, Harvey was, I mean, gosh, that was a ton of rainfall there with that storm. And
Right.
yeah, you
Well,
only hope you.
we just saw a named storm this week, right?
Yeah, Arthur. Yeah, just the other day. Yeah, it was just a little one, and the high is kind of blocking it from the northern progression. It's gone now. It's moving off to the east, and yeah.
Well,
But yeah,
hopefully
I mean, it's not hurricane season yet, and we're talking about hurricanes already.
I
So
know it's only May. It's only May.
it should be a big year. But you know, one thing I would say, Larry, though, is the last hurricane. Do you remember Hurricane Bob in 1991?
I do.
August 19th, 1991. It was only the second named storm that year, and that was an El Nino year. So there is that correlation I was saying where, in El Nino years, you have low numbers of hurricanes typically. And if you remember August, we only got to the B storm in August, but the key here is it only takes one. You only have one storm to cause all sorts of havoc. And, you can't really look at the numbers all the time and say, okay, but if you play the numbers, and odds are there's going to be more impacts to the landfalls and trouble in the Gulf of Mexico and the East Coast of the United States, Florida Peninsula, Caribbean, so on and so forth.
Right. Great. Yep. Well, hopefully this wasn't a precursor to the amount of storms this year.
Yeah.
Good. So
well, I think it's about time it warms up at least, I mean, above normal temperatures for a change. People hate me right now. They're local meteorologists. They were calling, my name is Charlie Lopresti. They're calling me Charlie Depress Me because every day
Charlie.
or whatever.
We can't have that. We can't have that.
No, it's getting better though, Larry. It is.
Yeah, good. Yeah, the weather looks nice out. Looks like this week's looking pretty good. So great. Now that was a good look back and definitely a good precursor to the summer and potential for some hurricane activity. So what are we thinking for this winter? Can we give a little tease? And maybe we'll do this. Maybe we'll do this in a couple of months when we get closer to winter before you do your real forecast.
We should. I think it'll be fun. Like I said, I love doing these things, and but there's really, I have no responsibility on it. I just find it fun. I can't imagine people have to forecast these things and spend a lot of money on commodities and stuff based on these forecasts. That must be that must be very stressful. But as far as going into the winter, I don't think there's a clear sign that we're heading into an El Nino winter or anything like that. Typically, either weak La Ninas or neutrals end up either normal or above normal snowfall, at least in southern Maine, where I'm forecasting from. So that's something I'll be watching for as well. And we'll see how kind of summer we have, or how the jet stream's shaping up, and if that warm pool is still there and south of maybe in the Gulf of Alaska. Because that's something that's important, I think, because when you get that kind of thing, usually you get the jet stream that's going to do some big ridging, and that's going to draw down the polar jet. So you get these big undulations. We call that the Arctic Oscillation. And this year, we didn't really get that until late in the season. But if you get more big undulations in that jet stream, you're going to get more opportunity for cold air to come south, merge with some Gulf of Mexico moisture, and produce more of an active storm track in the eastern half of the United States. So that's something that I'm always looking for. And, I think we're due for a big winter next winter anyway. So if we get a weak La Nina, I'll play the odds for above normal snowfall. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking early in the game. We'll see.
All right. Well, we're not going to hold you to it, but we'll revisit it in September or October, and we'll do this again. I think it'll be fun.
All right. Snow on the ground Christmas morning.
You're making early prediction. You heard it here, early prediction. Well, thank you, Charlie, for spending some time with me today to talk about this, and thank you to everybody that's going to tune in. This is going to be posted out on the CES LinkedIn page, and we'll probably upload it to our YouTube channel. And just one more reminder, CES is hosting one final stay-at-home series on June 4th related to sustainability. So hopefully you'll see that email coming out to you shortly. And thanks again, Charlie.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Larry. That was fun.
Good. Thanks.